Hello, everyone. Finally, we're live. This was a supreme example of effortful leadership. Apologies for those of you. Well, firstly, thank you to everyone who's been waiting around for the past 17 minutes. Really grateful for your patience. Apologies. Technology decided today to royally do my head in. But we finally got here. That took a lot of self-awareness, Jerry.
So Carlos, just take a deep breath. All is well. It was a beautiful lesson, isn't it? Think about how in the startup we develop a business plan and then reality hits. What a great lesson. So anyway, back to you two.
I definitely had a plan and then I got punched in the face.
As good old Mike Tyson said.
Several times. Okay. So what we usually do, Jerry, is we check in to say, how are you arriving? Let's why don't we start with that? What's your energy like at the moment?
Bemused, delighted, curious about how things are going to unfold, and marveling at the wonder of the universe at presenting us with a technical challenge, just as we were trying to launch. So yeah, I'm fine. Or as to use reboot language, I'm checking in green, despite the snow here in Colorado.
Wow. That's a world away in terms of weather compared to here. Laurence, how are you arriving? Oh, well, you've arrived for the past 20 minutes.
I've been able to see. I feel like I was in a higher plane because I could see everyone, I could hear everyone. Not everyone could see me or hear me, so it was like there was different languages going on, different energy levels and energy fields going on. So yeah, I'm feeling grounded despite the chaos of the last 20 minutes. I said to Anya, it's a bit like watching the kind of IT department like crumble in front of me, because Carlos is that. He's like the guy you go to in a crisis. He's the kind of rock when things go wrong. So seeing him fluster and try and navigate some of this stuff was quite, I'm not saying amusing because it wasn't amusing, but it was trying to lighten it by seeing the fun in it.
Yeah.
I could feel the anxiety reach my throat. And it was one of those situations where we've tried plan A, we've tried plan B, we're trying plan C. We're going to go back to plan A and just bang our head against it and see what happens. And it's like, there's no other option. There is no other option. But
well, I think we whacked the computer on the side of its head, and that worked.
Yeah, we were short of getting a sledgehammer from the garage. That was where we drew the line. But we're here.
Right.
We have everyone else here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining and for engaging in the chat while you were waiting. I'll start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are. This is the Friday Fireside, brought to you by the Happy Startup School. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, you haven't been subjected to the mayhem and the madness that was brought to us by the universe. And so this is going to sound all calm and very swan-like in its delivery. Today, we are joined by, I feel embarrassed to say that, a hero for me. I discovered Jerry many years ago on the Startup podcast by Gimlet Media. I heard about, he was the CEO whisperer, the man who made CEOs cry, which intrigued me because very much it was a contrast to the idea of what it meant to be in business and in startup and to be a leader. And this whole, and something Laurence and I have been thinking we were alone in terms of what's the human side of this stuff of business. And Jerry was writing about the stuff, talking about the stuff, working with CEOs, really digging deep. And so for me, it was a revelation to know that within this world of big business, startup world, there are people who are thinking about leadership and humanity in this way and vulnerability. And so I'm very grateful to have Jerry with us today. For those of you who don't know him, he is an author, a coach, a founder, a business person.
Devastatingly handsome.
Sorry?
Devastatingly handsome.
Devastatingly handsome, supremely wise,
Great in a crisis.
amazingly knowledgeable. All praise to the Jerry. And recently, he's written a book called Reunion. Previous book was Reboot. Both books I found very fascinating, and it's a really interesting journey that I think I'd like to take us on by understanding some of the background to this book. But that's my little potted history of my view of Jerry from the outside of Jerry. Jerry, how would you like to describe what you do now, and maybe a brief sojourn from the beginning to now, however you want to put it?
Well, thank you for all that kindness, and let's blow a kiss to whatever source of the anxiety, Carlos, you might be experiencing. You have not disappointed anyone. And just hang out with that feeling. Okay. I'm not going to go through my CV. People can look that up, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? I think the thing to understand about everything that I have done, everything that I do, is that I am organized around, trigger warning, I'm about to talk about Buddhism, organized around what I would call as my bodhisattva vow. And for those who don't know, bodhisattvas are folks who have achieved enlightenment, but regardless have chosen to take rebirth until all beings are free of suffering. And so when we take a bodhisattva vow, which is a thing that one does, you work towards the liberation from suffering of everybody. And my particular karma is to live in this bizarre realm between business and Buddhism and psychology, and with a particular intent to making life easier for other people. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail, but that's what I try to do. It's what I try to do when I write books. It's what I try to do when I'm engaging in a podcast conversation. It's what I try to do as a coach. It's the thing that gives me ground and a center and purpose. So, did that answer your question?
Very much so. And I think in relation to what was happening today, right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, there's the whole idea of the two arrows.
Yes. Please tell us about your second arrow, Carlos.
Oh my God, my second arrow. Yeah, the inner critic,
Yeah.
Carlos, you idiot. Oh my God, what is Jerry thinking about you?
What is Jerry thinking? Yeah.
Oh
My
my God.
hero.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me tell you what Jerry was thinking.
Yeah.
This man cares so much about this work that he will push and push and push to make this conversation happen. Because, hey, listen, folks, and thank you for joining us. All those folks who are sitting there, Carlos cares about you. He cares so much that he will push through any shame or difficult feelings he has to try to make this experience happen. Laurence, do I know your partner well?
Yeah, I'm loving this, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So all we're doing right now is having a heart-to-heart conversation, even though it's completely, as someone said here, okay, it's Terry wrote, plan B is always better than plan A because you know more at the time, right? We're on plan 12. And that's okay. And if we run short on time, I'll come back another time. We'll do this again.
The calming energy and presence is, I think, something that I have admired from afar in the way you present and you have conversations with people, and I think is one of the main reasons I was attracted to your work,
Mm.
because of the contrast that it has against what it sometimes, well, what a lot of us perceive it means to run a business and be, particularly in a startup, in a hustle culture, and where it feels like a dog eat dog world.
Mm.
Um, and I've and this is where I'm curious about your work. Particularly, you talk about Buddhism and you talk about psychology as drivers, or I think as anchors or pillars of in the way that you approach things. What is it from your experience that makes this idea of launching something new, trying to grow it, trying to keep hold of it, so effortful for leaders?
Well, Carlos, the experience that you were having just a few minutes ago is a good example. There's a conscious, or there was a conscious experience for you that I will liken to our efforts to create the magical unicorn of a startup. I have this plan and it's going to unfold in this way. But behind that are all of what you call this, what you referred to as the second arrow, which is the arrow that comes at us after we've already been shot by an arrow, which contains all the stories that we tell ourselves, including, for example, all the negative self-talk. And if we look at the experience that we just had a few minutes ago, as a microcosm of the entire experience of leadership in a startup, we have this idea, we have this plan. And the challenge seems to arise from the plan not unfolding as anticipated. At one level, that is the catalyst. But the real source of suffering, the real source of challenge is, to use a Buddhist notion, our attachment to the way things are supposed to be. And by the way, this is a life hack because it's not just about startups.
Mhm.
Right? But one of the phenomena about being in a startup is we very early on, because of the meaningfulness of the work that we're trying to do, we very, very quickly attach our sense of self-worth and identity to the goal. And then the plan doesn't unfold the way we anticipate. And so we suffer. Just like you, just like a few minutes ago. There was a whole bunch of weight that you put onto this experience. This is Jerry. He's my hero. Maybe someday I can be like him. He's so handsome. I'll never be as handsome as him. Whatever the story that's running. And that's the source of suffering. That, to use your terminology, that's the source of effort that makes the challenge so difficult.
There's so we work with a lot of founders, professionals, mainly in transition. They're either exiting one business, going into another, or they're stopping a career in corporate, trying to do something more purposeful and meaningful. I was struck by the analogy that a guy called David Spinks, he wrote a book called The Business of Belonging. And he talked about the trapeze, where you're on one trapeze, the other trapeze is just out of reach, and you have to let go of one to reach to the other. And there's a chance of being in free fall or even falling to the abyss. And that's an experience for that person in transition starting something new. So there's one piece there, but there's a lot there when you look at people who we perceive as successful, who are doing all the things, we think they're impervious. They don't have these feelings. It isn't something that normal is only for the mortals, while those who are like leaders of industry, they don't have this stuff. I'm curious from your perspective of working with some, I assume, quite influential or more established, bigger scale founders. I'm wondering what your story of that is and how you've seen that.
Well, I'll respond to your question a little bit by deflecting back to observations that I was making as I heard the question unfold. What I saw were two sources of suffering, which is confusing. You said you described many of the folks who participate in your program as trying to move towards a more purposeful or meaningful life, especially as it relates to work. And am I allowed to curse? I'm from Brooklyn.
Go for it.
What a mind fuck that can be. Because if we're, let's imagine ourselves approaching midlife in this, and I can imagine it because I was there, right? Working at JP Morgan, feeling the disconnect from meaning and purpose in my life, and feeling a kind of anxious energy that says, am I going to die never having felt purpose and meaning? And so we move and we create these conditions and we start to, okay, I'm going to do this startup. And we start to attach a sense of equanimity or our beliefs about our own well-being to an accomplishment of this goal. And then we struggle. And part of what fuels that is that we look back and we look at the world around us and we see our heroes, right, Carlos? And we perceive them, we project into them a whole story. And the story oftentimes has at its base how inadequate I am. If only I was like fill in the blank, then I could be bulletproof, as one client once said to me in speaking about an admired person. They're bulletproof, right? And the mindfuckery is that the energy that fuels our movement towards creating, say, an experience that is impactful for other people, which is a gorgeous energy, can also be a challenge. Okay, let me give you a specific example from my own life. I have wanted since I was a little boy to be an author. And to be clear, there's someone who aspires to be a writer who doesn't write. Then there's someone who aspires to be a writer who writes. And then there's this magical golden land where someone who writes gets published. Oh, okay. And so I endeavor, in writing Reunion, one of the things I took on was this larger than life task. What can I do to help heal the world? No big task. Just trying to heal the world and stop us from trying to kill each other. That's all. And it's my bodhisattva vow. And I lay awake at night after a weekend of trying to write and not getting the words right. And the story starts flowing. Who are you? You're not a writer. You're never going to be an author. Because the desired impact is so existentially important to me. And because it feels wonderful. When you wrote to me, Carlos, and you said your book, Reboot, was so impactful to me, a little part of my heart just settled down. Oh, I have lived a life of meaning. Our task is to balance all these forces. And there's no simple little 5-point checklist. Do these exercises and then you're free. Our task is to every day lift up and acknowledge what was going on. If the folks recall at the very, very start, I slowed us down and stopped to acknowledge and give some relief to Carlos's anxiety, which not only made Carlos feel better, but made Laurence feel better. It certainly made me feel better, and probably made some of the folks in the audience feel better. Totally unexpected, but the right thing to do in that moment. Now, I've said so many words, I have no idea where I'm going with this.
No, it's great. I think
you calm yourself down.
that particular last piece about slowing down, I think, is quite pertinent to this. And I'm aware of this in myself, that I am have been addicted to speed, and not the drug, but to this real need to get somewhere, to move really quickly, and how that adds to, I think, not only the frantic energy, but the amount of input that's coming in. Like, I've got to do this, got to do that. Always moving to the next thing.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you and coach.
Okay.
So remember my famous question, how have I been complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want? I wish to heaven I trademarked that because I would have made millions from it. No. The important thing to understand about that question is the psychological concept of secondary gain. We do something, even if it hurts us, because it produces a benefit. Okay. So I want to go back to something you said. You said, I think you said, I've been addicted to speed. Okay. What does it feel like when you go slow?
Oh, anxious.
And what is the story you tell yourself? Remember before it, when you were talking about being anxious and you were worried about what does Jerry think of me? What is the story you tell yourself when you are going slow and feeling anxious?
Not being productive, not
And
doing
what
all the things.
and what will happen to Carlos if he's not productive?
Oh, he'll be rejected.
By whom?
Oh, now we're going deep. Oh, I know the story well. Sat watching TV. My dad comes in, says, "What are you doing?
You're
Do
wasting your
something productive."
time. Right.
That's
So,
baked in.
all right. So stay right there. Stay right there. So we're going to turn a little bit to reunion. Okay. How important was it for Dad? And by saying turn in your reunion, folks, those who haven't read the book, I spend a lot of time talking about our relationship to our ancestors. So how important was it for Dad to not waste his time?
Really important.
Why? What was at risk?
He was on his way from being in a small village in Sardinia, kind of not kind of scraping a living, to wanting to, yeah, basically build a life for himself, build a new life for himself. And so he's always valued learning and using every single or all the time he has to improve himself, to move
So
forward.
Sardinia was his home,
And he was his home.
the birthplace, perhaps.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. And what did his parents do?
Farmers. Shepherd.
Okay. So they had a lot of money.
Not at all. Not
Okay.
at all.
So great-grandparents.
Great grandparents, yes.
Great-grandparents, yes, what?
They did well.
Okay, so what happened?
Oh, now we're going into family history.
Well, what we're doing, Carlos, is unpacking why Carlos feels anxious when he is not productive.
mm, mm,
Okay, so without going too much, because I know we're short on time, there was a moment in the family lineage where people were relatively comfortable, then they were not comfortable.
mm. Yeah.
And nothing can produce anxiety quite like having it taken away. Okay, so back to Carlos is on the floor watching television. Dad comes in. Carlos, what are you doing? Wasting your time. Don't you have homework to do?
Yeah.
You better get busy getting busy.
Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time.
Time is precious.
Time is precious.
Yeah. And
Because in a moment, it can be all taken away from
yeah.
you. Because
Yeah.
guess what? We have family lineage history that proves it.
Yeah.
We went
Yeah.
from
And I've heard many stories of that time during the war.
during the war. That's when they lost it?
That's when it was really hard. And that was basically, yeah, things got really bad.
Really bad. Really bad. Okay. I don't think that you were as addicted to speed as you were trying to make sure that what happened in the past doesn't ever happen again. Does
Yeah.
that have any resonance with you?
There's an element of trying to create security, trying to make sure you're on top of everything, making sure you're ahead of what might happen, or I'm ahead of what might happen.
Since I've already been allowed to use this term, I'll use it again. You want to hear a mind fucking concept?
Go for it.
Straight out of Silicon Valley? If I move fast and break things, things won't get broken.
Mm.
That is not the logic of a fully actualized adult. That is the logic of a child carrying the burdens of parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. Makes perfect sense until you examine it.
Mm.
See, if I
And this-
move really, 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 really fast, then I won't be unhappy. Use your
Yeah.
terminology.
Yeah, and being still then invites all the feelings, and that
It-
doesn't feel great.
It invites it invites in the challenging feelings, and it introduces the risk. The risk of what? And everybody's story is slightly different, but many of the stories have echoes that are the same.
Mm.
Yeah. And because I'm curious then, one of the phrases that sticks with me from your writing is this idea of longing for belonging.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if this is the core of it, because I definitely recognize in myself part of this need to be productive, need to work, need to move, need to always be doing things is this need for acceptance, this need for you've done well, you're good, pat on the head, keep on going. We're impressed by your productivity.
Yeah, and whose voice is that?
Oh,
Dad.
that's parents' voices. That's dad's voice, of course.
So I'm going to read a quick quote. And this is actually not my words, but it comes from it's the opening epigraph to the new book, Reunion. And this is written by Frederick Buechner. Buechner was a theologian, an American theologian. And he wrote, "There lies the longing to know and be known by another fully and humanly. And that beneath that, there lies a longing closer to the heart of the matter still, which is the longing to be at long last where you fully belong." It's from his book, The Longing for Home. Carlos, I think you did something very, very sophisticated right now, in which you saw that the way you're carrying forth that multi-generational, transpersonal experience that then manifests in the very thing that might drive you crazy as a startup leader. If I don't move fast and break things, then I'm not going to be happy, right? This is the framing. And the sophisticated statement was that I think that you realize that if you take on the burden of that belief system, what I referred to in Reboot as a subroutine, if you take that on, you know where you'll fully belong. You'll belong to your family.
Hmm.
And that's really powerful. And not everyone's longing to belong, which is a universal feeling, as Buechner points out, manifests in the way yours does. But there is a universal longing to belong that you can lift up and use to connect with Lawrence when he drives you crazy. Because Lawrence has a subroutine that's running. Every one of your co-founders, every one of your employees, every one of your romantic partners, every one of your children, every one of your parents has that universal longing to belong. As I wrote in Reboot, the wish for love, safety, and belonging. And when we see that, and we apply the radical self-inquiry to know what is my subroutine. You know, Lawrence, I haven't put you on the spot, but if we know that Carlos needs to move fast and break things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say he moves fast even if it breaks things. I'm teasing you.
No,
No.
no.
Okay. But now we have a clearer understanding that when he's doing that, he's saving not only his father, but his grandparents. What would it be like, Carlos, if you could enjoy the craft and the magic of creating the improbable startup that has beauty and impact and is able to bring in, what is it, 56 people on a Friday who patiently waited while we got our shit together on technology? What would it be like if you could enjoy that for what it is and not for what it has to do? How would that feel?
Oh, it would feel a lot less effortful. It would feel a lot more connecting, um, peaceful, um, light, um, hopeful, even. Just a sense of, particularly with the idea of being with others and sharing an experience with others, it creates a real sense of possibility for me when I think I'm with others.
How does that feel in your body as you name all those things?
It's it's kind of like a rush from the chest to the throat. It's like a flowing, um, yeah, a kind of a warm, tingly rush from chest to throat.
And those who are listening, check in with yourself. Imagine the subroutines that are driving you. And yes, Dennis wrote, driven or driven mad? Imagine those belief systems. And imagine just reframing the relationship with the assignment, with that core, your core longing to belong, where it's motivated by that wish for connection and the craft and the beauty are trying to create something out of nothing, which is the art of startups.
Mm.
Hey, kids, let's put on a show. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we blah, 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 built an AI powered engine that did shopping for you?
This speaks very much to our experience of taking people through a learning journey. So we run a coaching program. And on one level, you could look at it as, I've got all of these lessons, all of these challenges. I need to complete them all. And once I've done them all, I'm good. But the most powerful part that we found of this is, and I think I'm trying to speak to what you said, is when we slow down and we see each other in the group and we learn about these stories, maybe not go to the level of the subroutines, but just the motivations, the drivers, maybe the drivers that drive us mad, but seeing what's behind the behaviors of the various people that we coach as a group. And what I'm hearing is the importance of when we slow down and we see, and I'm going to quote you from your reunion, this idea of your story is my story. To be able to, like you just did then, is like when connecting this story, my story for always moving, being always in movement, to then maybe Laurence being able to connect to, that's behind that story. It isn't just Carlos being impatient and wanting to know where we're going, what we're doing, what's happening. It connected to something else that maybe he can connect to in his own subroutine. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, let's imagine a world where everyone that we endeavored to really know each other and see our own stories and their stories. Let's imagine the effects of that world. It's kind of hard to dehumanize pushed to the margins, systemically oppress, or systemically other those whose stories we actually know. So I'm conscious of the time. I know that we have a bit of a hard stop in about 2 or 3 minutes. I will say before we do anything, if you would like to have a part 2, I'm more than happy to do a part 2.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
very
I would
kind.
love to, because I think it is on. That's the cusp of the next part of this for me, which is really interesting, where you talk about what it means to know our subroutines and our stories, and then being able to then tackle something beyond us. Not just about how well we can be as a leader, but then the impact and the ripple effects that that can have, which I feel is the core of reunion. Wow. Didn't expect to be coached that deeply. Well, actually, I should have expected that, to be honest.
We could have called this unlocking Carlos, I think.
Lawrence
And
is
therefore
loving
making
it.
Lawrence's life easier.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think I've enjoyed it, not because I've had any light bulb moments. I think it's just, I think like you, trying to get to Carlos of a place of inner peace. Because I feel like sometimes he's not able to enjoy these things or the interactions because he's wanting it to be so right for everyone. So
Yeah.
I think
So
we need another week of nothing, Carlos.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll leave you with this thought, Carlos. You've already succeeded. You've already not wasted the time. Knowing that, what would you like the rest of your life to be like?
Yeah.
Because you're never going back to being a shepherd in Sardinia.
No. No. And I recognize that is of a time and of a place, and the echoes of that. They may be around, but they don't have to guide the next steps. And and it's very much I think being able to appreciate the being aspect of life as opposed to just the doing, and that place of acceptance. Yes, it's. I hear that. I know that. Let's say I'm 70% to the process of embodying that.
Well, I'll leave you with this reminder. The last line of my first book, Reboot, the subtitle of which is Leadership and the Art of Growing Up. The last line is, and with that, I mastered the art of growing up. I did not write, and with that, I grew up. Okay. We're always not at 100%. Forever and ever and ever. That's why it's a practice.
And I like the idea of it being an art and a practice.
That's right.
Yeah, I can get with that.
That's
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Jerry. I really appreciate it. Really, it was a little bit uncomfortable, but actually, I quite enjoyed the self-reflection and the indulgence of it.
Oh, there was nothing indulgent about it. Go read the chat. Everybody enjoyed it.
Awesome.
All right, everyone.
Looking forward to part 2.
You jump off.
You jump off. We can wrap up.
Thank you very much, and we will be in touch.
You got
Thanks
it.
for your time and energy, Jerry. Loved it.
You got it. Bye now.
Laurence, how was that for you?
I felt like a gooseberry.
Fly on a wall or some therapist couch.
Well, then I was thinking, he's getting this for free, so it's probably cost thousands of dollars normally. So just ride with it.
Anything you're taking away other than a deeper understanding of my
mind.
psychological pain?
No. Well, no, I remember I saw you posted something the other week about like we meet up on Monday mornings and we have a couple of hours and we talk about the week and plan ahead. And you said, I think you said something like, find it anxiety inducing, the thought of not being productive in those 2 hours. And just that, and I know we're different, and you never know what's going on in someone's head, do you, or in their body, like you said. So to have 2 very different experiences of the same situation that we do regularly, I just found really powerful. And this book, actually, I'm reading in this, David Brooks talks about a person as a point of view, and every human being is a creative. Basically, everyone's experience of life is creative. It's their own kind of creativity based on their life experiences and ancestry, all of that. But just how ultimately it is their own perspective. Your perspective isn't my perspective, and we can have the same experience and have a totally different reaction to it. Not just on this call, but in life in general. So, yeah, for me, it's fascinating to witness that, and yeah, also a brave thing to do. And
Thank
you are
you.
successful. Pat yourself on the back.
I love it. Yeah, I had not expected. I thought we were just going to talk about his book and how to be a more effortless leader. I should have known he was going to do that ninja move on me. But yes, I think it's enlightening, and I've been doing this work for a long time, just trying to understand Jerry's approach. But this, like you said, Laurence, it's very easy to tell the wrong stories about someone else's motivations because we don't know what's going on in their head. We don't know why they do what they do necessarily, unless they open up, and even when they open up in a way that you can clearly understand what they're saying, because language can get in the way so much. And so this is why I appreciate our work so much, and your energy around this is like to slow down, however uncomfortable it is a way to be able to just unpick and connect with each other. Otherwise, we just freewheel into oblivion, blaming each other for the pain along the way.
Exactly.
Cool. Thank you.
Go and break things.
Let's go and break things. I'm going to go and have a beer, I think. That's going to slow me
down. And drop a line to Sal at Crowdcast and say, what the hell was going on?
Yes, what was going on? Jerry Colonna was on the call, and hopefully
it was meant to be. It was all part of the plan that went
the
wrong.
The universe was conspiring.
Yeah. Just think we could have had a much more shallow podcast if it wasn't for that experience.
It was all meta. It was just telling us what we needed to really talk about.
Exactly.
All right,
but
everyone.
Thank you for everyone for being with us, because it would have been a lot more lonely and odd if we were just talking, the 3 of us, particularly for me. Just to know that there's others in the room feeling gooseberry-like. Thank you, Sean. And
thank you, Sean. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Anya.
And thank you, Anya, as well, for bearing with us in the green room before we joined, and awesome. Being the settled body that settled my body.
Take care. Have a lovely rest of the day and a wonderfully restful and slow weekend.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.